The statistics on people's levels of trust in politics make for depressing reading. Towards the end of the Second World War, only around 1 in 3 people in the UK saw politicians as out for themselves. Today, that figure has doubled to almost 2 in 3. You can see why. Between the expenses scandal, the dishonesty of the Brexit campaign, and Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Downing Street parties during the COVID lockdowns, ours has become the age of political disillusionment. At the time of writing, 3/4 of people don't trust the government to take decisions that will improve their lives. This pattern holds true for climate change. Although the UK has one of the world's highest levels of concern regarding climate change, 3/4 of people say we must do everything necessary urgently in response. Trust in politicians to deliver that change is low. 69% of Britons believe they are more concerned about the climate emergency than our current government is. Every politician has witnessed these corrosive levels of mistrust firsthand. During my attempts to run for mayor, I spent a lot of time with green environmental groups, from Friends of the Earth to the Green Alliance to the Labour environmental campaign Sarah. I enjoyed our discussions and learnt a lot every time. I knew that as mayor, I couldn't hope to please all non-governmental organisations and pressure groups all the time, but I didn't see upsetting all of them all the time as a badge of pride like some politicians did. They weren't always so keen on me, though. Many of these groups were convinced that politicians were natural liars and would never take the climate crisis as seriously as they should. They pointed out that the 2008 Climate Change Act, passed by a Labour government, was a distant memory, and its ambition had not been replicated by subsequent administrations. The great environmental hope, the 2016 Tory mayoral candidate Zac Goldsmith, had hardly mentioned these issues during his campaign to be mayor. Understandably, many politically engaged people were cynical about whether politicians were serious about tackling the climate crisis. One incident in early 2016 hammered home the extent of this disillusionment. In March, I'd taken part in a hustings at the Royal Society of Medicine, organised by Green Alliance, an independent think tank and charity focused on the environment. After the event had finished, the mayoral candidates joined the audience, made up of members of the public and representatives of environment groups, at a drinks reception. It was hosted in a foyer that had been filled with greenery for the occasion, bringing to mind the time then Culture Secretary Jeremy Hunt allegedly hid behind a tree to avoid having to speak to journalists. He would have had a field day here, I thought. I was in high spirits until I was confronted by a member of the audience who told me that she couldn't name a single politician who had delivered on their climate promises after being elected. She said that if I won the mayoralty within months, I would be focused on the bread and butter issues of housing, transport and policing, and the relationships I'd been trying to establish with environment groups would be forgotten. As she got angrier and angrier, I'm proud to say I did not hide behind a tree, though I did think about it. This cynicism wasn't just coming from activists. Among businesses, levels of trust in politicians were through the floor. The leadership of the Labour Party at the time didn't help. In my early years as mayor, Jeremy Corbyn was leader, which brought a certain baggage. Our position on Brexit had been unclear, and there were concerns that a Labour government could scare away much-needed private sector investment. I was keen to meet CEOs and entrepreneurs to reassure them that I would be a pro-business mayor and to tell them of the role I envisaged for the private sector in tackling the climate crisis. But this wasn't always easy. Many executives saw climate action as just another obstacle to their short-term profitability, understandable in a city where 90% of companies are small businesses. All this meant that by the time I arrived in City Hall, I was under no illusions about how much faith Londoners had in any politician with a green agenda. I recall meeting one green activist who pithily summarised what she saw as the problem. The trouble with you politicians is you always say one thing and do another.